circulation element is something that's going to evolve over time. Unfortunately, it's not that we can just make a plan and then tomorrow, a year from now, 2 years from now, everything changes. It's going to have to change over time as funding allows. So what this is, it's basically a plan that's in place that the city will build over time, and when money becomes available, when grant funding becomes available, we'll start to build those pieces of the project. So it's really looking into the future. This is a 20-year plan. You can think of it that way. It's going to take time to get there eventually.
First one is streets and highways, basically the roads that buses take, that cars take. The other piece to it is what we call the bikeway plan. So bicycles overlaid on top of the city street system, and also some bicycle paths as well. And then something that we take for granted, but we use all the time, is the pedestrian network as well. So all three of these together form what we call the circulation element. It's really how do you get along or get around in Santa Ana, whether you drive your car, whether you take transit like buses, whether you ride your bicycle, or whether you walk away. And the next step is to, after we've done all of the studies, is to incorporate all of your inputs and to develop a plan. And then we're going to go into what we call an environmental review process. It's really a formal process that takes into account your inputs, takes into account what the analysis that we completed, and then to say, here are some of the impacts, here's how things might evolve, and to disclose all of that before we make a decision. So it's really the beginning of a very thorough process. So one of the things that actually triggered this circulation element review is that Santa Ana, as I'm sure many of you are aware, is planning a streetcar system. That was a big enough change to cause the city to have to look at the entire network. And so a real central part of this study is to say, how do we build that transit network and that transit corridor? So it's not just a streetcar, I should point out. It's also more bus service. It's a type of bus service that we call BRT, Bus Rapid Transit, which is somewhere in between a regular bus and a streetcar. It runs more frequently, has some priority. And then let's talk a little bit about the bicycle network as well. One of the things that we realize too is that bicycles are increasingly becoming a very useful mode of people traveling. The problem is there isn't enough of those facilities that people feel safe on. You're allowed to ride your bicycle in traffic with the cars. It's a vehicle. But I think the issue becomes not that you can't do it, but because you don't feel safe doing it. And so the whole purpose of a bicycle network is to help you feel safe when you're riding your bicycle. Maybe designate areas on the street where people know bicycles are going to be there, so be careful. Or even to say that, okay, maybe a main street is not a place for bicycles, but there might be a close by parallel street that's designated as part of the bicycle network that people use. So that's really the purpose of this bicycle plan. And then the last thing to touch on is the pedestrian piece. And actually this is one where every street is a pedestrian street. We've got sidewalks for the most part on every street. But what the city is trying to do here is to say that there are some specific areas within the city that have a lot more pedestrians, that we want to start to focus in on those areas to see how we can improve it more for the pedestrians. And it's a combination. There will be some places that are more area specific. There will be some corridors that you see in the red that we want to focus in on. Now, there might be a better pedestrian corridor. So as we move out into the future, we start to implement these things.
So the housing element compared to, David was talking about a 20-year time frame. The housing element looks at an 8-year time frame. And unlike the circulation element, the housing element has some more rules, a little more restrictive. The state requires that every jurisdiction do a housing element every 8 years. And unlike any other part of the city's document, this element has to be approved or certified by the state. So the whole process the city goes through in order to get in compliance. They have, or what restrictions are preventing them from getting somewhere. Then we look at the old housing element, and we look at how it performed. Are there things we could improve? Are there policies we could change? we go back out to the public and we talk with them about some of their needs, some of their issues. And then from all of that, we draft some policies, we draft some programs, create some objectives. We want to figure out how many units we want to produce a certain way, how much we want to help certain types of housing programs. And then the city adopts it, and then after that, year 1 through 8 is implementation. Numbers about what is the existing need. How many people are in overcrowding conditions? How many people earn a certain income? What are the future needs? How much growth does the city expect to have to be able to house in the city? Looking at constraints, looking through all of the zoning codes, looking through various state programs, land prices, what makes it hard to develop or maintain housing? And then looking at the housing strategy. What is the city's policies? What is their vision for the future? That last corner is the most regulatory part of the housing element, mostly the most controversial part, and it's the land inventory. It's 4 letters, Regional Housing Needs Assessment. Basically, it's a number the state gives to the city that says, here's how much we think you're going to grow in the next 8 years, and we're going to break it down, and you're going to have to show how you can accommodate those. They don't have to build them, but they have to accommodate it, zone correctly. How much those two relate. So you have that housing vision. You want quality residential neighborhoods. You want existing neighborhoods to get better and stay good, and you want new ones to be great. Inclusive community. We've got to have the ability to accommodate all different types of lifestyles, all different ages, rental and home ownership opportunities, both of those, and those different affordability levels. And that overlaps with transit because primarily we're looking to figure out how to link all of the trips that you make. And that includes expanding housing opportunities along transit routes, so you might not have to take your car, you might be able to take transit. The city has a number of policies that are currently in their housing element. And this is our chance to see what has been working, what can we strengthen, what can we change. And they cover, there are a lot of policies, just a few, but we look at topics about health and wellness. How do we make sure that neighborhoods are more livable, encourage active lifestyles? How do we make sure that they have the right public services, that the infrastructure is working? And then in transit, there's a lot of policies in the housing element right now to try to make sure that housing is focused in along new transit lines. And making sure that we have these mixed-use opportunities where you can have a range of housing products, a range of housing types, and making sure that it's not all just a single-family house and it's all not just a high-rise. So you have what we call transit-dependent households. So everybody here has a certain number of cars they have access to. And for some households in Santa Ana, they do not have access to a car. Either it's a choice or they, for the most part, they can't afford one. About 20,000 lucky souls get to live and work in the city. So their commute, Santa Ana's kind of big, their commute's pretty short. For everybody else, they either commute into Santa Ana or they leave Santa Ana to work somewhere else. And that is about 80,000 Santa Ana residents go work somewhere else. So we're trying to figure out, can we put them along bus lines so that they can get on a transit line and go commute to their job easier than having to rely on a car.